Over your substantial career, who do you consider to be the best F1 driver that you've witnessed?
This is a question I'm asked all the time, and it's the impossible answer because circumstances are different for every driver. I mean, a lot of people would say Fangio is the greatest of them all, but what would Fangio make of Lewis's Mercedes with all its buttons and aerodynamics and all the other stuff? But equally, could Lewis sit in a great big heavy Maserati and make it work? So it's really difficult to make comparisons. I mean, obviously, in my time, um, one of the fastest drivers I've seen and people have acknowledged is Kimi Raikkonen, but won only one championship. Michael, of course, Schumacher was a quite extraordinary, not just a driver, but I think his greatest strength was he was a team leader, which I think singles him out slightly from the rest in that when he went to Ferrari, he almost had to, along with Ross Brawn, create a team. And I used to see him quite late on a Friday or a Saturday night at the circuit. And it would be kind of, I don't know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and he'd still be there with the engineers. They were a very close knit unit, and he used to keep them very close knit. And then he would do things on the track. Ross Brawn would say, I don't know, I'll pick a figure out of the air. Say, I need you to lap at 1:36 for the next two laps. And Michael somehow could do that. I don't know how he could do it, but he could. It was almost like, AI or something. He was so incredibly able to do these wondrous things. So Michael's, obviously up there. But I think a lot of people now are saying that Lewis's successor, Max, is, he really is extraordinary. He is quite extraordinary, and he has been from the minute as a teenager, even before he had a driving license, he set foot in a Formula One car.
What's it like to have been able to witness and be able to recount Michael Schumacher's career, especially in the part of the book when you write about his 2006 Monaco race?
I think what's interesting about Michael is that he, apart from his supreme talent, he had this awful dark streak. He couldn't allow himself to be beaten, and that's why he resorted. Sometimes, and I think it was a subconscious thing. I don't think he almost realised he was doing it, um, but he did what amounted to cheating, and he did it regularly, as we know in '94 when he punted Damon off the track, and he got away with that. '97 he punted Jacques Villeneuve off the track, didn't get away with that, and was banished from the championship. Um, and as you mentioned, that Monaco thing where he pretended to hit the barrier. Uh, why? I don't know why. He didn't need to do this stuff. He just didn't need to do it. What I think is interesting is that one of Michael's best friends was Jos Verstappen. And I see a lot of Michael in Max, a lot of Michael in Max. A lot of similarities in the way they handle the car, the team, that this very feisty attitude, and this also, he can't be wrong. Max, like Michael, cannot be wrong, and they are just so similar. I find it quite spooky.
Kevin, there's always going to be, that rivalry for the top position in sporting teams, especially we saw Verstappen and Ricciardo fighting for that top position for Red Bull years ago. But was there a particular rivalry that you witnessed that sticks out in your mind, or did Michael Schumacher himself experience that?
He didn't really have a rivalry with Daniel because of their age gap and where they were, but it became quite clear quite quickly that Daniel was going to get a pasting from this kid. Michael never had an in-team competition because every every teammate he had was subservient by contract. They knew when they joined, when Irvine joined the team and Barrichello joined the team, they knew they were the number two. There was no question about it. Max hasn't had to have that because he just beats everybody. And really, Lewis is the only guy that has in the team faced competition. So he had obviously Fernando in his first year, and then he had Jensen who beat him in 2011, I think. And now he's got George Russell, who's giving him a bit of seeing to, which I think should be a bit of a worry for Ferrari because they must be looking at this season and wondering whether they've just bought a $50 million uh, loss here because he's not going too well, is he?
Do you think that Lewis Hamilton will get back to his best when he starts driving for Ferrari next season after so many years with Mercedes?
I don't know. I don't think any of us know, but I think, you know, people are now openly talking about the fact that maybe his time is over. I mean, he's beyond 40 now. He's not a youngster, and whether we like it or not, your powers fade. When Michael Schumacher came back to Mercedes at about a similar age after a layoff, after he was sacked by Ferrari, he was a shadow of the driver he'd been, and Nico Rosberg was never really troubled by him. I fear that Lewis's time might be over, but we'll know next year, won't we?
Kevin, as someone who spent 2 decades travelling from circuit to circuit, was there a particular race that you were there for that sticks out in your memory the most, that you look back fondly, or something that was just insane to be there at the time?
My first race was in Melbourne in 1998, and I had been an industrial and political reporter for almost my entire career at that point in both regional newspapers and then in Fleet Street when I first went down to Fleet Street and then ended up at the Times, and somehow went from a 1997 general election and the death of Diana to being the motor racing correspondent. I don't know to this day how this happened, but it did. And I remember walking into the paddock at Melbourne, absolutely, completely cold, didn't know a soul, didn't know anybody at all. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. And my wife rang me and said, "Where are you going to watch the race from?" I said, "Well, I'm going to watch it on the telly like you." And she said, "You just flown 10,000 miles to watch the race on the telly." I said, "Well, apparently that's how you do it." But of course, there were timing screens and stuff in the media centre. And it was quite a fraught weekend. And it ended, as people will see in the book, the McLarens were outstandingly fast. It was Adrian Newey's kind of first car for McLaren. And they lapped the field in the race, but there was a kerfuffle when Hakkinen went to the pits, and David Coulthard overtook him and was leading and was going on to win the race. And then Coulthard was instructed to move over and let Hakkinen win. Well, the hullabaloo after the race was unbelievable. I mean, people were running about all over the place, and there were accusations and finger pointing. And I had no idea what was going on. I just thought, this is just weird. What is happening? There were questions in the Parliament in Victoria. And this was my introduction to Formula One. I just thought people went racing and it was dead easy. But actually, it turned out that Formula One was, it could be a nest of vipers at times. It could be so political off the track, as exciting as it was on the track. And I had to sort of deal with that. And that first race lives with me forever. And followed up at Spa that year when we had 15 cars collided, just coming out of turn one at Spa in the wet, and Schumacher was going to beat David Coulthard up because he crashed into the back of him, and Eddie Jordan won his first race with Damon Hill. The first season was extraordinary.